Lori here, Alex Gomez, Rise and Grind podcast, episode 18 weeks of doing this with you, from the playing field to parenthood. And I mean, college softball has been underway for the past couple of weeks as far as like D2, D3. I do know that because someone made that clear to me on Twitter. When I did say that it was happy opening day, someone got rather upset at me. And it's not that I don't appreciate softball across the board, because I totally do. And I say this to any parent or anyone that's going through the process. Like, I know that the dream is you want to play in those top 10 schools, but if the opportunity is ever there and you don't get that chance at your dream school, D2, D3, JUCO, those are all options. And they're hella good options. The grind is the grind to get where you want to go, right? I think that's something that we forget sometimes. The work that you put in at your craft is still the work.
But don't come at you. You're not one person. You're not somebody that forgets that.
No, I just, like, we do such a big thing on social media with opening day with college softball, and there's just such a big hype. And I'm like, okay, maybe we just need to do with all softball across the board. Maybe D2, we need to do a big opening day, and D3. But anyways, just wanted to make it clear. I got it on Twitter. Noted for 2026.
Noted. Thanks, guys. I was at Academy of Art. I didn't know they were D2 before I coached there. Like, who would have thought? Like, yeah, it's crazy. There's so many options out there, but there's always a good fit. And D2's, I mean, it's competitive as hell. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, but so we're gonna be going through a lot of the highlights over the weekend, a couple like favorite upsets, favorite performances, what we saw, what we're looking forward to. We got Clearwater this week, which I know you're totally exhausted from the prep, but like, does it take away from like the excitement because you're just so exhausted now from all of this stuff?
No, I think I go overload on the prep, because if I don't feel confident going into call the game. So that's always, stress is high. And then we get to game one and the nerves are there right out of the gate, because I'm like, oh shit, it's been a long time since I've called a game. And then we get it rolling, and then you're like, oh, okay, it's still the game that I know. Here's the foundation. I know what I need to do to get this job done for 2.5 hours or however long. But it is a lot of, I think it feels like a little bit more work just because we're coming off that AUSL draft, and that was such a big deal with the prep and all that. So it feels like I'm behind. But I'm not actually getting the vitamin D in person. It's going to be from the house, and people that are actually watching the podcast and not listening, you can see behind this at-home kit that I set up today on my own. No husband, no one. That was all me. Tech DL in the house. So
I feel like you've graduated, like you're officially like capable now. This is good.
But Clearwater actually kicks off on Thursday. My games start Friday. I'll have 8 games. And yeah, 3-3-2. Excited about it. I mean, this tournament always is kind of like the biggest preseason tournament, postseason tournament feel that you'll get out of the whole year, right?
Yeah.
Like, Mary Nutter's pretty awesome. Palm Springs tournament is rad, but this tournament since 2020, when I've been there, and the big name teams that they get, it really is kind of, you walk in and you're like, damn, this could be a super regional matchup. This is what you could get for a regional right here in World Series. So it's kind of cool. The fan support's awesome. The hype, everyone just is jazzed about that tournament. So the fact that I even get to still be in the mix of calling games, and I've been doing it since 2020, from home or not from home, it's still kind of that same giddy, let's go.
Yeah. And it's when you're at tournaments like that, like for people who've never been, like even just as like spectators, it's different as an athlete, obviously, but like even just as spectators, like the ambiance at these things is so different than like regular season games. Even postseason is so different, because I feel like there's the teams are so limited, right? If you're at a regional, there's 4. If you're at a super regional, there's 2. The World Series, there's 8. Well, there's 8. But in these big tournaments, Mary Nutter, like you said, Clearwater, I mean, we're talking like, what, 10 to 12 teams at a time? Like massive top 25 all playing against each other within one complex. It's crazy.
And it makes good bang for your buck if you're buying tickets to go watch, right? It's like, you're cream of the crop. You're going to see more than 3 or 4 teams. And now, especially for some of those tournaments, like the Mary Nutter, and like, it's a lot more, you're able to go and like see these players like really close when you're playing stadiums and stuff. I know at least for Clearwater, they're really tight on the security piece and giving the respect to the athlete and post game and all the things. But I remember playing in that Palm Springs tournament, and it's like you can't breathe. There's so many people, everyone's always on your grill, and it's exciting for the sport. I know sometimes it may feel like, oh, it's a lot, like I just need a second. But you got to remember, there's some sports fans that are in love with the game, and when they see you, to them it doesn't matter if you just won or lost. And it feels like the end of the world at times as a collegiate athlete when you don't perform the way you need to. But remembering the impact that you truly can make on someone in a moment is so key. And that is something, I don't remember whoever gave me that advice, but that's something that I've always remembered throughout my career. Like, you can ruin your reputation in one bad interaction. So I'm always big on that piece and eye contact. And even on the days where you feel tired, it's like, this is what you signed up for. I
feel like that's something like with Penelope right now, like we're really trying to like harp on is like her attitude after the games, like whether they win or they lose. I feel like sometimes it's still so hard for them to regulate those emotions right after a tough game. And so this was the story I was telling you about. This last weekend, we were out of town for a soccer tournament, had to drive like 3.5 hours. And soccer, for those of you who don't know, when you play competitive like club soccer, it's based off of like your birth year. So she's a 2013. They were playing up against 2012. So we were talking like 6th graders playing like 7th and 8th graders.
Yeah.
And they win the first 2 games on Saturday. They're doing great. They go to play Sunday morning. They lose 2-0 against an older team. We end up playing that same team for the championship at 2:00. Mind you, it's Super Bowl Sunday. So all of the dads are like,
hey.
They were in a great mood about having to stay extra time to like play in the championship. And you know how it is, like when you pull up to a field and there's no parking. And so like Mike gets out with Penelope to like walk her over for warm-ups while I find the parking and unload the car, and I have all the other kids. By the time I park and Mike comes back to help me get the stuff, he's fuming. And I'm like, oh gosh, what happened? And so apparently he walks up with Penelope for warm-ups. And the other team is standing there with their parents, like the parents and the kids. And as he's walking up, one of the parents asks the 2 girls that are standing there, so what is your guys' goal for this game? And the 2 girls standing there both said, injure number 14.
Oh, no.
And Mike looks over and he's like, excuse me? You mean my number 14 as in my daughter that's standing right here? And the parents were like, oh, no, like we didn't mean it like that. And he's like, there's really only one way you can mean exactly what you just said, and that's not okay. And so he came over to tell me, he's like fuming, and I'm like, well, go tell the coach. Like, you have to let him know, like shit's about to get real. Yeah. And so he goes and tells our coach goes and talks to like the tournament director. They go talk to the other coaches and their parents and all this stuff. And it turned into this huge thing. But it was like, I was shaking because I was so upset. It was like, it takes away like everything that this sport is about.
Yeah.
Just wiped off the table. Is like to know that these parents were encouraging their daughters not to play their hearts out, not to like put their best foot forward, but that like their goal on that field was to cause physical harm to my baby.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Whoa.
And nothing happened. Thankfully, the officials, the refs were amazing. And that takes a lot for me to say. You know how I am about the officials. And they were amazing. They were on top of it. They were calling the right calls. They were not allowing things to get by. And like their parents like jumped up at one point and the team manager ran over and was like, no, like sit down. Like they were on lockdown. I was very impressed with the way the situation was handled. But it was just like, it's one of those moments where you're like, is this really happening? Like, is this truly what's going on? And they were cussing at her and like she was in tears because of the like, and I, you know, you go through the whole thing, sticks and stones may break, whatever. But it's really hard for an 11, 12-year-old to like not let that bother them. They're going through middle school, like everything sucks right then and there. And so for her to like have to deal with that on a regular basis, it was just like, it's like all the things we talk about. It's all the things like how difficult it is, and you're trying to like be a good example without like flying off the handle, because that's what I wanted to do. And keeping her safe too, because then you're like, oh, do we pull her? Do we like not?
Yeah.
Because is this one game worth potentially her getting injured and then not being able to play the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'm kind of a little like, "Ooh, I don't even know what to say," because I don't even know how you handle that type of a situation. Number one, you always think from the parent perspective, like
Mhm.
my kid and someone is literally saying to go hurt my kid. Like, trust me, I am the fiercest competitor that most will meet, but it is never with the intent to take someone out
Right.
from being able to play the sport, right? Like, I think there's moments in sport, in certain sports where you're playing contact, soccer, basketball. There's moments
Right.
in softball as a pitcher where someone hurts someone sliding in and you're going to throw the ball high
Yeah.
and tight and maybe get him in the ribs. And it doesn't feel good, but it's a part of the game. But it is never with the intent where they can't play anymore. And that's what is grimy about that situation, right? Like
Mhm.
like it was a jealousy issue of her being a stud and saying like, hey, like go and show her what's up and take her out so we can go win this thing. And
Yeah.
that is, I don't know how I would handle that. I don't know. My husband is very calm, cool, and collected throughout it, but I feel like it would be hard for me to not engage with the parent respectfully.
Right.
Also, knowing that now everything's filmed and videoed, and the last thing I want is a giant thing going on the internet of me freaking out. But it would really have to be a conversation of that. Like,
Yeah.
you're understanding what you're teaching these kids, right? Like, regardless of who we are in the mix, like
Mhm.
teaching them something throughout this. And that to me is just trash. And I'm sorry that you guys had to experience that. Youth sports is a lot. So happy that she didn't get hurt and none of that went down. Probably would have charged the the field. I could see you if
Yeah,
something
I would
were
have
to
been viral.
happen.
By this morning, I would have been viral for sure. Yeah, it would have
It
been.
just it seems like that is not how sports should be. But I'm telling you, it's a love hate. It
Yeah.
happens all the time in sports, and it's just the kind of the worst side of it. I think parents bring out the worst side.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you see that, and I feel like I did a really good job. Like I didn't fly off the handle. I didn't like run over there and start yelling at them, but like I let the coach know. I was like, if something happens, like I need you to know why I'm already at this level, like
Yeah,
why it wasn't like a slow buildup. But it makes me it gives me hope to still see the type of like positive competitiveness that we saw this weekend
yeah,
on the softball field. I feel like if I know, like, just you can see, like, I watch players like Jordy Ball, and like that just comes to the forefront of my mind because there was a play this weekend. I'm trying to remember who they're playing now because now I can't remember. She threw a pass ball, and her
oh,
catcher,
Tennessee. Was it the
yes, I
Tennessee
think
game?
maybe, and her catcher went and got it and like came back and dove
Oh,
at the
that was
girl
Beck. Yep.
and
Keck.
came back and got her out, and then they're just like pumping each other up, and it's like that's the kind of stuff that's like it's so gritty and so like it's not dirty in that sense. It's like it's the complete opposite. It's like what makes you still excited because you know that that competitive piece, like what makes people like maybe jealous of your daughter and the way that she plays and the way that she carries herself.
Yeah.
You know that that piece can be morphed into something positive and good. And so I feel like that was like one thing that stood like the first thing that stood out to me this weekend was that play because like again, I remember watching Jordy Ball play, I think it was her freshman series at UCLA, right, for Oklahoma. And we all watched her and we were like, holy shit, who is this girl? Like,
Yeah.
where'd she come from? Like, she's this badass. She's just got this mean mugging face and like came out there and she's kind of small, like for pitcher size. Like she's little, but she packs a punch.
Yeah.
And so now seeing her at Nebraska after her injury and coming back like that, I just feel like that was it was such a cool way for Nebraska to start the season. So that was like one play that it calmed my nerves. I was watching the highlights and I was like, okay, this makes me feel better. Like on the drive home, I was like, okay, we're good.
Especially because you think about like kind of the big three that I really think about that had got hurt in the season before that really make an impact on their team is a player like Jordy Ball. I mean, she was playing Washington in the Puerto Vallarta tournament in Mexico. Game 1 got hurt. And that kind of through Nebraska's season. Not that they couldn't compete, but you take away that piece in the circle, sorry, ain't happening.
Yeah.
And then you look at Devin Netz with Arizona, who had battled and had a back injury all of last
Yep.
year play. And then now she's back, experience, rehab, all the things. 3 home runs in 1 game, made ESPN, like all the things, like cool to have her back. And then also like LSU and the run that they had going to super regionals up against Stanford and Nija Kennedy. Danica Coffey had got hurt like earlier on in the season. She's key for them. And it makes you think, like, if she's healthy, is that the one missing link that maybe gets them over the hump to beat Nija Kennedy, because they beat, Stanford game 1 in the 2024 super regional, and then Nija came back. But so just number one, to have those players back, I think is so key, because you feel those types of players, right? But to just kind of even continue on the LSU, like they had a hell of a weekend. They played great, but I don't think it goes without saying, like, that freshman Heavener and the 6 inning perfect game. That is the hardest thing to do in sport, to go and be perfect, and more importantly, not allow the mental stuff that can be going on in a game like that get in the forefront of your mind and mess up that piece. I thought, I kind of turned the game on and was flicking, because there's so many games on ESPN and on the app, and I'm just like, oh damn, who's this little lefty? And then I went to another game and I came back, and I think what impressed me the most was that, like, mechanically she looks just super smooth and super fluent. But against Charlotte, like, they didn't stand a chance. Backdoor curveball, like, she mowed him down. And so to me, that kind of stood out for LSU. Regardless, they played well, put up good numbers, had a great weekend, but I think that really was kind of one of the biggest highlights in the game when you think about it. The first
As a freshman, like,
first lefty freshman ever to do it at LSU, like, that's kind of hard. So that stood out to me for sure.
Yeah. What else we got? I feel like one of the other ones was Mississippi State overall, coming out 4-1 on the weekend, beating Texas Tech in 8 innings with a walk-off. And then
Nija throwing.
Yeah. And Nebraska. And they beat Nebraska 3-0. And so they came out of that weekend beating 2 ranked teams. Mississippi State's great. Like, SEC, I mean, it's one of the toughest conferences, right, to come out of on top ever, because there's so many people up at the top. And I feel like just being able to pull that off this early in the season, consistently over the weekend, to come out 4-1 like that against those kinds of ranked teams, I feel like that is a big, like, signal, like, hey, we're here, and this is going to be one of those seasons for them, I think.
Yeah, I feel like they are always that dark horse team, with Sam Ricketts, like what she does and the magic that she brings, and the coaching staff. Like, they're a team. Like, I remember, I want to say it was 2022 maybe, where they beat Florida State at home for regionals. And like, those are just the little things. They're able to step up big in kind of those pressure situation moments and just be like, oh, like, we're meant to be here. This is what it's all about. So I'm with you on that. I mean, a freshman that you have to talk about, Taylor Schumacher with Florida. Florida's legit. To me, they're a team that has the ability to win a national championship. There's probably a handful of teams that I could say that about, but I'm going and looking at the experience piece. Yes, they lost a player like Skylar Wallace, and she meant a lot to them, but they gained some good transfer portal peeps. But I think about, like, some of these freshmen that are able to come in and just make such an impact. Not only, Keegan Rothrock and what she was able to do in the circle last year to get them to game 2 on Sunday against Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma's up against the door. But Taylor Schumacher, the freshman, I mean, you think about the weekend that she was able to have. She had two home run games, had 5 home runs total, 11 ribbies. Like, I don't care who you're playing. Like, to be able to go up opening weekend as a freshman, juice is flowing, and to be able to have that type of performance stands out to me. So when I think about Florida as a whole, I think they are a team that's probably high up on my list of teams at the end of the year that are going to make a big push. And it's players like that that are able to come in and make an impact right away. Because I say this, Not a lot of freshmen at times get the ability to do that with the transfer portal. They
Right.
just don't. So when you can have freshmen that come in that earn that right and earn that spot to be able to make that type of an impact,
Mhm.
it's huge because everyone's looking to the portal. I want someone that's a junior that has experience, that's maybe played in Oklahoma City or a super regional, over a freshman that's just coming in and has to learn the culture and the dynamic and the leadership and all the things. So kudos to Taylor Schumacher. That stands out to me. So a couple of SEC freshmen right out of the gate. Jaden Hevener, lefty pitcher. Taylor Schumacher, stud for Florida.
Yeah. Our girl, Ruby Malin over at Oklahoma State, she got an award. Was it one of the SEC ones? I feel like I was browsing, but I didn't stop long enough. I think she got one of the highlights of the week, or like one of the pictures of the week.
She threw pretty well. She threw against Florida State right out of the gate.
Who's unranked? Is that just me?
No, Florida State and Oklahoma State are both ranked.
Okay.
The game ones are always like so crazy because you're just seeing what everyone's made of, right? So we actually went on a call today with Lonnie Alameda because we have him this weekend, and she goes, "Man, like I had to lay into my team after game one against Oklahoma State, and I'm glad that I was able to have those, words in exchange, but like I wanted them to be different." And then on the flip side, you look at a team like Oak State that's transfer portal peeps all day.
Yeah.
And to me, the biggest question mark for Oklahoma State is, can they get pitchers to do it outside of Ruby Malin, right?
Mhm.
You look at Acock and you look at Crandall, they struggled. They went 2-2 in that tournament after they went out and beat Florida State game one, and then they get run ruled by Florida State in the last game. And I get it. You don't want to start Ruby twice against Florida State because you can maybe have a down the road. But I know it's early on in the season, but I'm saying like these are the things that I started to think about through the analyst lens of like, hey, you can have one good pitcher that does well. But as far as like a pitching staff, this is completely where the game has changed and evolved from when we played.
Yes.
If you have people that can step up in those big moments, obviously Crandall's a transfer, but Acock has that experience. She's played at Oklahoma State the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So to me, the biggest question mark going into this Clearwater tournament is like, how is Oklahoma State going to compete without it having to be all Ruby? Because that to me is just not setting your team up for success down the road. You know what you're going to get with Ruby. She's a competitor, badass. But I think for me, that's going to be key. And then when I turn around and look at Florida State, like they have so many pitchers on staff, and are they going to be able to get all of their pitchers going when they need them to, right? Like
to keep the competitive edge. Yeah.
And it's, multiple people on coaches calls today. Stacey Newman-Denise talked about it a lot. We had, Lonnie Alameda talked about it a lot, constantly trying to find ways to neutralize the offenses. So it's a cat and mouse game more than I think it's ever been.
Yeah.
As far as doing your homework on who we're starting, why they're starting them, who the matchup is, who's in the bullpen. And that is completely how teams are going about their business. Florida State's going to be able to hit no matter what. Hit and play defense. They lost some key components, obviously leadership people. But when I look at them as a whole, like they're dynamic as ever. To me, it's going to be who is going to be able to replace those fields of the Cat Sander Cox and those types of key pitchers that were able to really help get them to the, national championship playing up against Oklahoma. And obviously they came second, but still to be able to do that twice within 4 years, it just goes to show Florida State's winners win, and they always continue to keep getting the right people in, and the culture is so key. Yeah. So that kind of stood out to me for Florida State. Yeah, you lose game one, who cares? Boom, next pitch. How do we move on? And I was impressed with Florida State, and I think they are definitely up there as well as a team that could, if they get the right mix with pitching and the young ones are able to really get it and trust Lonnie Alameda, I think they're a team that can make a really heavy postseason push again in 2025.
Yeah. I mean, always just dealing out athletes that can just compete consistently. So yeah, it's like you said, it's like the first game it's such a statement, but at the same time, it's like it's the first game of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's our job as the media, it's our job as everyone else to put that pressure on them, because
Mhm.
that's what this sport has rose to, right? It's like, oh my God, someone failed. Oh my God, someone did well. Like, we talk about those pieces because that's our job. But at the end of the day, I feel like I could at least say that I learned that as an athlete. I didn't give a shit what anyone else said.
Yeah.
Our team, our goal, our inner circle, our vision, if we're all in alignment with where we're going, it doesn't matter about the outside world. Now the hard part is social media and all the, people that want to tell you how much they love or hate you. So it's being able to deal with that piece as an athlete,
Mhm.
but caring about what someone says about a weekend or two. But I do feel like that is the hardest part for athletes, to be able to decipher the difference between. That's not easy.
Yeah. It's we
No.
get to just stand on our little in our little soapboxes and just pick it all apart for them. Like, we see the ugly and the good. Like, we see the good too. We'll definitely give you props when you deserve it, but we're also going to be super critical because we see it all. Like, we notice the little things. One of the little things, like Nyjah Kennedy not getting the start.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one?
I liked it. She threw a lot. She had thrown a lot, and she lost that extra game in Mississippi State. And there's just like,
Yeah.
listen, Nyjah needs help. You can't
Yeah.
just rely on one arm. And you tried to do that with Stanford, and you saw how far that took Stanford. It still got them pretty damn far. But now you have a Texas Tech team that has pretty potent offense behind them, with some transfers from Louisiana that came over
Right.
with Lasso. And so I think it's more so about giving her the pressure-filled moments where you want her to be able to rise in the circle.
Mhm.
But I think you continue to give some of these other pitchers the moments and opportunities to feel the pressure too. Because number one, you never know what'll happen if an athlete goes down. You always need to make sure you're at
Everybody's ready.
least efficient to, hey, that. Number two, the fact that you're giving Nyjah the opportunity to swing the bat is so key. Not only is this instilling this inner confidence in herself that I can help the cause, because there's nothing worse than pitching and losing games and not being able to step in the box and help yourself out.
Right.
And number three, you're also giving these kids that are watching this belief of like, shit, I can do that.
Yeah.
To me, it was so badass seeing her, number one, hit the double off the wall. Nothing came of it in the Nebraska game. But then the 3-run shot in the fifth and seeing her around the bases, like, I got so many goosebumps from that moment of just being like, dude, this is so key for her. And I don't know if this was a decision that kind of opened my eyes to, I get why she wanted to transfer. Number one, the money was right. That always plays a huge key. But number two, she's playing free and she's getting these opportunities to be able to go and hit. And that was something she talked about in her press conference. Or she did a segment with MLB Network before the game, and I watched it, and she was just saying how excited she was to be able to learn, the offensive side even more from Jerry Glasso, because that's kind of his specialty, right? Like an offensive guru. And you know what you're going to get with her in the circle. She's going to have to continue to evolve to be successful because people have the data and the analytics.
Got her number. Yeah.
But dude, the fact that she gets to hit and got that type of moment under her belt, that only gives her more confidence. So was I sad she didn't start? Yes, I was driving to soccer and I had all the time in the world to Mount Vernon, a 50-minute car ride to sit and watch. And I still sat and watched it at the game, and I had every soccer mom asking what I'm watching. And I'm like, only one of the biggest games ever right now. And it's, first weekend of February. But she's just a player that excites the shit out of me. I haven't met anyone more down to earth, more humble, hardworking, just an ambassador for our game, man. Like she's a good one. So, and she gives, I hate saying this because I'm Canadian, but she gives at least this hope to Team USA of like that type of caliber of a pitcher, right? That like you need more than one, and we've learned that. But she's somebody that could be a piece to their puzzle to try to get like a gold medal back, because that was something Stacey Newman Newman Denise talked about today in the coaches call. Like, we want to get that gold medal back. Like, we want USA standard to be back where it is. So I thought that was kind of cool that she was just talking about that. But Nyjah, real deal. Whoa.
Carries a big stick, but she swings it too.
She does. She made it look so easy. I'm like, get out of here. Get out of here. And then I had to get, like, we had practice that night, and I'm like talking with the coaches, and they're talking about like hitting pitchers, and they're like, they didn't even know that I hit in college. And then they're talking about it, and they're like, what, do you have like 1 home run? I'm like, I had 34 throughout my career, ladies. So if you need me to give a little hitting lesson to your kiddos, I'll do it for free. But damn, I was like, just like counting me out in the offensive piece. You don't see hitting pitchers as much anymore because it's really hard to do both at a high level. But the unicorns find a way to come through.
Yeah.
And Nyjah is a unicorn. So I'm with you on that. Kind of a web gem that we saw. Most people probably did see this one on SportsCenter, top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Eshte with Texas A&M made a hell of a grab, like over the left field sidewall. I don't even know what you call that. Kind of near where the bullpens are.
Foul ball.
And she had the ball in her mitt and then had so much momentum coming back that it flew all the way up in the air. And then she laid out for it and still caught her own ball. And we talked with Trish Ford today, and she was just like, dude, that was one of the coolest things that I've just ever seen in my life. The athleticism behind that. And
yeah,
so that was kind of cool. And I actually got to see that, not in person, but was watching it. So
I could have. I was in College Station. I should have stopped at the stadium. I know. We had time too on Sunday between our games, and I was like, oh, there's a game at 11:30. Maybe I should go. And then kids. So I didn't get to go. But it was a very cool moment on sports. I did see that. And it's one thing to like, and I would know this as a left fielder, it's one thing to like make that play and catch it. But then if something happens, if you hit, like, a lot of people have their tarps rolled up on the side, or like there's other stuff in the way, or like cameras sometimes are out there. And to still finish the play, like, my thing was always, if that ball touches your glove, you better catch it. Mm-hmm. Because if you're that close, you're close enough. And so for her to it was very cool. That was major props.
Russ Laurie, my dad, you touch it, you catch it. Dude, I had to do a lot of running with that. It was hard, but you touch it, you catch it, go. We didn't have to run too much, but it was more than I wanted to because he made it hard on us. Sticking with the Aggies, some late come from behind wins against Utah State and Baylor. Put up a 6 spot on Baylor. I thought they were going down. I was actually texting with Amanda Scarborough throughout, and I was like, dude. And they came back. Emily Kennedy, you know what you're getting with Emily Kennedy. Lefty, flank, or 70 plus, continuing to evolve, wants it bad. But to me, it's looking at them last year and making it to game 3 of the Super Regional against Texas.
Right.
When I look at it as a whole, if they had a heftier bullpen, or maybe some pitchers that they could have relied on a little bit more, maybe Kennedy could have been fresher going into that Super Regional. So I know that was a point of emphasis going into the offseason for Coach Ford, was wanting to be able to get pitchers that could help the cause. And they did. They went in the portal. They got Grace Sparks. They got Sid Peters. And then they have a good freshman pitcher in Sydney Lessentine. But this last weekend, Grace Sparks and Sid P, they struggled. They struggled heavy. And, you knew what you were going to get with Kennedy. The freshman threw well. But that's going to be something that I'm looking for Clearwater. Just seeing the caliber of the teams, the consistency in the circle with Emily, but what are you going to get from the other two? Like, how is Coach Trish Ford going to be able to continue to get them to evolve and own their shit? And that stuff that she said today on the call, like, you got to own what makes you great. Like, you personally, what makes you great. So I'm excited to see kind of how that goes down. Big Mac, one of my favorites. I had her when she was at San Diego State in the UCLA regional. And she transferred to Texas A&M, 3 home runs over the course of the weekend. Just a big bat, man. Like, kind of the one where as a pitcher you go, oh, like when she steps in the box, it just kind of gives you that factor. So
Yeah.
one of the sweetest young ladies, so personable. Her and I sat down at the regional I'd say last year, but it seems like it wasn't that long ago, but last year at Easton Stadium and in LA, and super personable, works her ass off. Really happy to see her feeling settled and like she's having fun. Coach Ford says she's just one of the best kids, so I love that for Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's a good catch. And I mean, it's got to be, I feel like it's such a big transition too. Like we've talked about how temporary the coaching positions can be, right? Like you go from kind of hop around a little bit. So to go from like the Pac-12 and doing ASU, and then now she's over here in the South and like Texas A&M, like those are two very different styles of softball. Like just the fans are different. Like if you've never been to College Station, like College Station is built for the college, the whole town. You go to a restaurant there, at least one person at every table is wearing something Aggies. Like that is just that they like bleed Aggies. So, I mean, ASU's, they also have a really great fan base. I love Phoenix. It's not Phoenix, Scottsdale.
Yeah.
I used to go there every year for Labor Day. That was like one of our family vacations. So like I grew up wanting to go to ASU, but alas, did not happen. So it's always interesting to see like once those coaches catch their grooves at certain place, like in a new place, and like they're really starting to put it together and like figure out what it is that sets that program apart, like as a culture. What are they trying to build?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be really exciting to watch A&M this season.
Oh man, and just what they experienced last year with being so close,
Mhm.
beating the number one, the number one overall seed. Texas was number one, and
Yeah.
they went in, and I mean, they lost Trinity Kennedy. I think she had 3 or 4 home runs in that super regional. And when you lose those types of players, for sure, it hurts a little bit, but it's all about the experience. What did you learn in that moment? How close were you? What did you feel? And how are we able to get over the hump for next time? So when we're training in the fall and the winter, you're remembering what it was like when you were there. That is key. Something else that kind of stood out to me, Kentucky, there was a thing that was going around online of Coach Lawson doing a press conference where she got emotional with some stuff. And I kind of wrote a little bit of it down. I don't need to go too hardcore word for word, but man, it made me love her even more because when she's just like vocal and honest and transparent, it just is mad respect. So she said, it's really hard to be loyal in this day and age. In my attempt to stay loyal to the people that I recruited, because of that, the team took a step back. There were players living under the standard. Then I had older players who I was trying to be loyal to. And I love that she had the, ownership to just full on put that out. She was talking about last year's team, right? Like that's older vet players. They lost a lot of vet players, but they had a lot of young youth incoming freshmen that could have made a big impact. And at times you have the older players and the younger players, and you feel like you owe this loyalty to the older players. But what's the standard? Is everyone staying above the line? Are they not? And for her to be able to vocalize this, I think just gives an okay to, number one, this is now our standard. You're either going to be here or you're not. And whether or not you're a senior, grad, first year, this is what it's going to take to be able to win at Kentucky. And that's what she said. It's like, I owe the university more, and I need to do a better job of like that. So what's right? I need to be able to do that. And I love that. I know there is this loyalty that coaches sometimes feel to players, especially when they recruit them.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to remember that now we are in a time where athletes are just not as damn loyal.
They don't feel that. Yeah.
And portal has made it that way. And that's the NCAA and all the things. It is what it is. So coaches at times don't owe that sense of loyalty back.
Mm-hmm.
Selfish. We got to do what's best for the program, right? And you're either going to be a piece of that or you're not. And I have Kentucky this weekend, and there's some players that definitely transferred out, and there's some players that graduated. You think of like the Aaron Koffel at shortstop, like just big name players. So I don't know. I just love that Coach Lawson admitted that. She got teary-eyed. It was, you could see her trying to get through it, but just like owning that was key. I loved it so much to where I needed to feel like to speak on it.
Yeah. It's really hard to like, when you look at the stuff that's going wrong around you and to point the fingers and to say, well, it's because this is not happening and this is not happening, but to like take it back take a step back and say like, okay, but what am I doing to not fix those things, right? Like, what am I not doing to make these the best that not everything's in our control. As a coach, I've told you before, that's like the hardest thing that I ever experienced as a coach was it was so hard to have everything, like my worth be dependent on other people's performance.
Oh, yes.
And so to then have to say, okay, well, maybe it's not just their performance. Like, what about their performance am I not fostering? Am I not putting them in their best position? Am I not criticizing enough? Sometimes that's what it is, right? It's that tough love. And so to recalibrate like that and really look at like, where have I maybe gone a little lax, where that self and that like assessment is so key as somebody who coaches, somebody who teaches, as parents. Like, you have to be able to look at that, look in the mirror and say, okay, where am I falling short? Where can I be better? And what are the steps I need to take to improve?
Yeah.
So the fact that she's aware of that and making the steps, like, it's just major props for sure.
She's always been kind of one of my favorites. She's really personable, so well liked. And I do feel like coaches have had to learn that since COVID, like, there has to be evolving on their part too. The athletes are very different. So in order for me to match that bougie ass energy that's coming in, I got to figure out how I can coach them, but still be me, but also learn that I need to find a way to adapt a little bit as a coach, because it is different. It's different than when you and I played and those that played before us and the ones that even played in the middle. So I think even just speaking it into existence for her is huge.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about OU, but I want to talk about them a little bit, because you can't not talk about the 4-peat champs.
The reigning champs.
Yeah. I mean, are they expected to win every year? They are. Is this the year that maybe they don't? Maybe. I mean, I will always say it's theirs until someone takes it, because that's the reality of this. But they didn't go and do any hardcore big time tourneys right out of the gate. They went to California and were a little bit more quieter with the teams that they played, simply to be able to get the younger athletes the pressure filled moments. I mean, you think about the big wigs, like you have Ella Parker and Sarah Pickering. Like, those are like the big returners.
Yeah.
From the national championship team, right? So sophomores, experienced, but maybe not like as experienced as having Alyssa Brito at third base or Kenzie Hansen behind the dish. So OU had 2 hardcore extra inning games, a 9-inning against San Diego State, where they ended up coming out with the win, and then an 11-inning win over Long Beach State. And I don't know. I guess it's the youth, right? It's going to take a little bit. I think in the circle, they were money. Their pitchers kept them in games. We've been so used to their lineup being so damn strong. So it's not to say that this isn't a team that can't get in that mojo and get it right. I can at least appreciate Patty Gasso giving a softer schedule right out of the gate, right? Like, let's get our feet wet. Let's kind of figure out what our team vibe and dynamic is, and maybe take out the 4-peat mentality, right? Like, that is just the biggest, like
weight. That's a weight.
It just, you feel it. And until they lose for the first time, I feel like they're always going to feel like, oh my God, we need to be perfect. And maybe they don't, but it's our job to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of Tia Malloy. Obviously, I help coach with Lawyer Malloy, Tia's dad, and we're around the family, Coach Brandon Malloy. So she had a couple home runs over the weekend. So that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, for me, it's going to be about like Offensively, will they get it going? Defensively, they're sound. Pitching, they have such a dynamic repertoire of arms that they can go to. And
They
you could
mix
see
it up.
Patty Gasso making some changes in moments where you're like, dude, why is she doing that? Well, she's getting them experience and getting them those feels of a tight extra inning game. We need you to get XYZ done, execute, do it for the team. So I think they'll be ready when it comes to the pitching and defensive piece. It's going to come down to like clutch hitting, but that's where we're at in college softball.
Yeah. Because it's not about the one pitcher anymore. I do feel like that's one of the biggest things that's changed over these last couple of years. It's really become, you've got to have a staff. You can't just ride one arm the whole way because the hitters are too good. The stats are there, the numbers, we all have too much data now. Like we see too much, right? And so one pitcher can't get away with what they used to be. Not that you got away with things, but it's a different look now. It's a different, hitters have gotten better. Pitchers have too. Again, I'm just saying the goal of it's not 0-0 ball games up until the last inning or one hit ball games. We're talking like we've seen, like OU has produced so many runs in the last 4 seasons, like blowing people out. And it's just like, that's not the type of stuff we were used to seeing. So it really has changed. I feel like the DNA, like you have to be ready. Like your defense has to be better. They can't just stand there and wait for the pitcher to strike everybody out and be done or pop flies the whole day. You have to be making these plays that we're seeing people make that are amazing plays, but it's like that didn't used to be the norm. So I love it because I feel like it's so much more exciting to watch.
I'm glad I pitched when I did. I'll just say that. We'll just keep it short and simple because
that's a good ending though. Like that's why I didn't pitch.
There's just much information. There's a pitching machine that can replicate every single thing that you do, if not better. So athletes are getting multiple reps off you before they even play you. So your best pitch isn't even a pitch that can fool them at any point, right? I think the one thing to always remember is elite pitching will always dominate good hitting when it matters. And you see that when it comes to always, I feel like Women's College World Series, you get those tight ass ball games and you're like, damn, this is what it's all about. Like, yeah, you'll get the big games every now and again, but there's a couple legit tight games that you think about, like Caitlin Terry, UCLA playing Oklahoma, and they won. OU won 1-0. It was kind of one of those games where I'm like, damn, you got the freshman in the circle, swagger on point, and she's just holding the defending champs to no runs. And then obviously they won. But, when it comes down to it, when the pressure is big and the moment is real, when pitching is on and elite and it's moving and it's spinning the way it's supposed to, it's going to beat great hitters in big moments. So food for thought. Hard to do it consistently from the jump all the way to OKC.
A lot of games.
But that's when you rely on a staff. And that's kind of my next point. To me, the best staff in the country right now, and this is bold for me to say this because I know that there is a lot of elite pitching right now, but I got to go with UCLA.
Okay.
And I know that they're young. I know, you have obviously Caitlin Terry. And the year she was able to have last year, Taylor Tinsley, who was hurt for actually a couple weeks with UCLA, where it literally was just Caitlin Terry.
Yep.
And then you have the addition, the number 1 recruit in the nation, Addison Fisher, who was actually a Northwest Bullet. Shout out to the Northwest Bullets. Number 1 recruit in the nation. So to me, it's all about, number 1, the type of player that Caitlin Terry is, the lefty, and Taylor Tinsley. They're both opposite when it comes to what they throw, but the vibe is just so money. Like they are like good buds and they flow and they work well together.
Enough of each other. Yeah.
And then I think this new addition of Addison Fisher, if everything works its course the way it's supposed to, her being laid down is going to be key. Tinsley has the change. That's great. Has some good upspin. Caitlin Terry curve, lefty curve, rise up in the zone. That's her money pitch. Addison Fisher being down is such a good combo to those two. So I don't know. I didn't know how UCLA was going to do last year when I did find out Taylor Tinsley was down for the count, and then it was just Caitlin Terry, and I thought she did exceptional. So she only got her and Taylor got so much experience. So
Right.
you know, you think about the big players they lose, Charlize Palacios, Maya Brady. I mean, those are big hits, no doubt. You're losing them. You're losing the numbers, the ribbies, the homers. But they have a lot of legit athletes still in the mix, right? Like Grant, Savannah Pola, even though Seneca Curro has kind of had her issues with being hurt over the past, stapled defensively for that team. They have some legit incoming freshmen that will make an impact. So I don't know. To me, UCLA is always a team that is scary. You know, they
Always. Yeah.
have rich tradition. We know it. We say it. But I think at the end of the day, they're always a team that hits no matter what. And the question mark has been like, can their pitching continue to keep getting better? And to me, UCLA's three-headed monster of pitchers that they have is pretty tough. So I think they're the best staff that I've seen collectively all together in a long time.
Yeah. Deadly combination.
Yeah, tough. But those are kind of like my keys. I know Tennessee, they ended up going 5-1, lost game 1 to Nebraska. You had the matchup you wanted, Jordy Ball, Carlin Pickens, game 1. Different type of feel game 1. You know, there's so much, oh my God, I got to be perfect. I got to be this. I got to be that. It's going to work the way I want it to. Is my training great? And obviously Jordy Ball comes out on top. Carlin Pickens threw 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 runs, 0 earned runs, which means that we're making some errors when we shouldn't. So it comes down to the defensive piece, right? Like, so they ended up having a decent weekend, no doubt. 5-1, that's great. You lose game 1. Game 1 doesn't ever really matter. But just saying, it comes down to like the defensive piece. And they lost, but then they came back and scored 42 runs in 4 games the next 4. So they found a way offensively to make some adjustments and get some stuff going. So those are just kind of my thoughts from weekend 1. I was rooting for my Huskies. They went down to Arizona. Had a good win against Arizona. Had some, moments where I was like, damn, and some moments where I'm like, it's going to be a rebuilding year at times, but it's always about just continuing to gain experience. But, I've always got to check in on my dogs.
Always. Yeah. They were, I did the same thing because Bob, obviously, this is it. This is his farewell season. And they're hosting a crap ton of tournaments because it's Hawaii and it's not cold there. So a lot of people go out there for the tournaments, and they ended up 4-1 on the weekend. So I think it was a good start for them. It's, we got to put our plugs in there, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But I'm excited for you this weekend. I know you've got a lot of work to do.
I'll post on our Instagram the games and stuff that I have in the networks and get everyone the scoop. So yeah.
Lots and lots of coverage this season via ESPN, via ESPN Plus, the app, all the things. So we're really excited to keep digesting and digging into all this stuff with you guys, but also make sure you guys are tuning in when those games are happening. You can't not turn on over the weekends and not find softball somewhere. So we want to get the viewership up as always. Just keep that fan base growing. So we will catch you guys this weekend, basically. Dee will be live, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace out.